Hey guys, I'm waiting for Facebook to work and Zoom to integrate and do the things technology. I am so excited because Michelle is going to be joining me shortly. Okay, we are rocking and rolling. Meeting is streaming live on Facebook. Say hi if you're joining. And I'm gonna run over here. Yeah, cool. Valerie, you just asked a fantastic question. I'm seeing it right now, so we will get to that for sure. But basically, actually, Valerie, you and Michelle's conversation really sparked this idea to talk. I do not have ADD or ADHD, but I would say 50% or more of my clients do. And I think that it's a very common thing for healers and intuitives to have to handle. So I want to speak to it because my major premise in online business building and crafting your healing arts business is that it gets to work for you first. Okay. And I have a bachelor's degree in psychology, a master's degree in psychology. I know a lot about the human brain and motivation and what works for people and what doesn't. Also, 15-year career in corporate HR. So there was a lot of figuring out how to get job accommodations, how to make project teams, how to create a thing that's going to work for the person, right? And so I do that with my business and with my clients in my coaching. And I do that in my courses and programs because all of our brains work differently. Okay. We all have different neural connections and pathways. We all grew up learning different things. There's a lot of stuff out there now about attachment theory for adults, but it was really created as a child development thing in terms of psychology. So there's all of these different ways we learn and these different ways that we work. And I firmly believe in building a business and a life that works for you, right? So if you love Zoom calls, great, you get to do that. If you love text-based support, great, you get to do that. If you have dyslexia and text-based things don't work well for you, great, you can use voice memos. This is what I love about building your own business. It gets to work for you and you don't have to make yourself wrong for it. Okay, I'm gonna bring Michelle into this conversation. Feel free to ask questions at any time and share your experience too, because you're a human being who has lived with your brain. You are the expert in your brain and your body and your spirit. You're the expert, not me. And I've always believed in that premise of like, you know the most about your motivation and the way that you're gonna work and not work, not me. That's not my expertise. I'm not an expert in you. You're the expert in you. And so from that empowered place, you get to create your business. It gets to work for you. Hi, Michelle.
Hi.
Thanks for joining in. There we go. Sweet. So I was just talking about how a major premise of my work is that you get to build a business that works for you. And we get to find a way to make it work for us. But I think along that line, it can be really hard when we're on our own, because how do you get motivated? What do you focus on when? How do you get to the goals you want to get to? And like the big goal is successful online business that makes you consistent, reoccurring monthly income to the tune of like 5 to 10K months. But to get to that big goal, we got to break it down, right? And that's where Michelle comes in.
This is where I come in, and this is like my jam. I love this stuff. Oh, well, good morning, everybody. Oh goodness, this is such a good conversation to have, because I was telling Emily the other day that like I didn't know that I had ADHD like before I started setting goals and before I really like was like, okay, I'm really determined. I don't know what I'm gonna do or how I'm gonna like make stuff happen and like really do what I want to do in life. Because if anybody else, like, let me know in the comments if you guys experienced this too, but like for me, it's always been like, here's the big picture. Like I want consistent, you know, income in my business, or like I want to go buy a new car, or like paramedic training, or like I want to build that dream house. And then that's all we can see is just that big picture. That's all we see. And then it's like we kind of, that's all we see, and we're just like, I don't know how to get to that, right? And it's like
It
we
seems
kind of
so
forget.
overwhelming and
It is, it's
impossible.
so
Yeah.
overwhelming, because it's from there, it's just like we kind of, how do you step back and like create those really smaller steps that are also going to be really fulfilling right here, right now, while you're getting to that bigger point. You know, that was like a huge part of me. Like one of my first goals is like, I just want to be freaking happy. That's all I want. Right. And then what really blew my mind was in the process, when I found out like, oh, you're ADD. And I was like, oh my gosh, this makes so much sense. And I figured out like my own system and structure of how I can set my goals, hit my goals, time management, and like the structure. And I know a lot of people with ADD and they hear structure, they're just like, oh God. But for me, I thrive on it. Without it, I'm lost. I feel like a chicken with my head chopped off running around. I'm gonna forget
Ditto.
calls, all of it. So without my structure and like the goal setting and like these smaller step by steps, I don't think I'd be where I am today. And I figured all of that out way before I found out I even had ADD, which blows my mind, and I'm grateful. But I think, and my grandfather clock, ignore that. But
No, that sounds
yeah, it's just
beautiful.
like it's just, that's the process. And for me, I think it's time management of a lot of goal setting is like you get into your own, like that's what I teach, is like getting into your own routine and the rhythm and like creating the habits and just being like, okay, here's the goal. Okay, how do I break these down into smaller steps that's not overwhelming to our ADD brains, and then start taking the action, you know, over time to get there. And in the process, you learn about yourself and how you best operate. You learn, oh, I freaking hate this planner. I love it. I don't want to do it that way. This works for me. That doesn't. It's, you learn your own groove, right? And it's, you adapt and you're just like, okay, here's my lifestyle, whether you're like a really busy mom or you're still working 9 to 5, whatever that is, you, what I teach is you just, we go along the way and we're just like, okay, what's working, what's not working, how can we pivot, how can we make this better for your lifestyle and what's going on. Oh, you hate this, great, let's figure out something else that works better for you so you can
Amen.
keep going, right?
Oh my God. So I'm really glad we're having this conversation because Michelle and I do this intrinsically. It's just what we do. And so it's really hard to get at the articulation of like, oh, I guess this is groundbreaking and life-changing. The way we do business
Yeah.
and the way we teach and coach how to do business is it gets to work for you. But that's the trick. That's the freaking trick. And the frustrating part when you're doing this alone and you aren't investing in business coaching, you don't know the other methods that might work for you better, right? Because like
Yeah.
I've got a billion and one ways I can teach how to get crap done on the internet so that people see your stuff and decide that they need to work with you. You have a million and one goal setting strategies that are going to work for people's unique lifestyles, right? Do you have an autoimmune disorder? Are you in pain most of the time? Like, cool, we do too. We can help you figure out how to work around that. You have a 9 to 5 job, you have multiple side gigs, you have tiny children, like, cool, we do too. We can help you find ways to figure out around that because I really do believe this. Do I believe this? Yeah, I believe you can build your business in 15 minutes a day. And if that's all you have, then cool, we can figure out a way to make that work. You post the same damn post on repeat. Your strategy is like a 3 to 5 bullet point strategy. I'm going to share this. I've been sharing this all week. This is literally my strategy for sharing the mastermind. Okay. Post on Facebook, post on Instagram, post in the groups you've been posting in, send a newsletter, journal about it, dance, say my prayers, go outside, give gratitude for each and every person who's already joined. Like that's the strategy. That's the breakdown of like, how do I have a sold out mastermind? These things consistently on repeat. So how do you have a successful business? That's why you get one-on-one coaching with Michelle in the mastermind so she can help you figure out how to break it down. What are
Yeah.
some examples like of ways that you managed, because you figured it out for yourself? Like no one taught you, here's the
No.
goal setting strategies, here's the ways to break it down. How the hell did you figure it out?
Oh goodness.
Big question time.
So let's just say if you're not getting any help, I fell on my face a lot. A lot. Oh, I wanted to give up a lot. And with, ADD, the good old squirrel brain too kicks in, and you're just like, oh, I want to go here, this goal, this goal, this goal. So it's just like figuring out like, okay, what can I focus on now versus later? Because that's a huge thing with us is like we get all these freaking ideas that are coming in. Oh, this feels great, but if I don't do it right here, right now, I'll never do it. That's not the case. I have the tools and tips and strategies that you can navigate all of that. But for me, it was so much trial and error. Like I cannot tell you. I think the drive that I had, like if there's just like I was in the group the other night, I'm like, it just feels like you're on this freaking hamster wheel, but you've got this drive. There's something just still telling you, keep going, you're gonna figure it out. It's just like it's that drive, and for me, I don't know. I think I bought a planner and I was like, all right, I'm going to figure this thing out. And like, I struggled for almost a year and a half because having ADD, like, it's funny because my very first vision board that I ever had when I got super serious about everything, I was like, I'm going to make it happen, whatever it's going to take. And my first vision board, it literally had like a picture of the Maldives, a John Deere lawnmower, and like the cars that I wanted, and like all these really like 10-year goals,
Tesla PS.
5 like big goals, and I was trying to make these really big leaps and bounds, and it wasn't working because I was way too fucking far ahead of myself. And then that's when I realized like, okay, Michelle, we need to like step it back, and like Emily always says, like you're putting the cart before the horse, I do believe. And that's what I was doing. I was like immediately like, I'm gonna go get a brand new car, but the thing is, I didn't have any type of plan, where I wasn't even taking action to like go get this new car, like go get this lawnmower,
Because it's
like I
overwhelming, right? Of like, I want a
it is.
successful
It's
business.
I had no
Okay.
idea of like, Michelle, you need to simmer it down just a little bit. Where can you start? Like right here, right now, so that you can create a fulfilling life that you love right now, even if your business feels a little chaotic or maybe it's not where you want it. It's like, even me, I still have my freak out moments still to this day, but like
Oh, we all do.
it's all working, and like I can have my panic moments, but like ultimately when I lay down at the end of every day with the structure and the strategies that I use, I'm like, hell yeah, like I'm doing it. Like shit is actually working. I'm on track. But for me in the beginning, it really was, I was putting the cart before the horse because I immediately wanted to be like, I'm going to go buy this $4,000 lawnmower, and had zero action plans of like a plan of like, how am I going to do that? Because for me, being ADD, I've always called myself a dreamer, and I always will be, because I get so in my head about, and I daydream. That's all I do is I just daydream about what I want, like what my future life. And then I'd get stuck there. And then it would just be so overwhelming and confusing to me. It'd be like, how do I get there? Like, how do I become the woman that can afford a trip to the Maldives? Like, how can I become the woman that can buy my dream lawnmower? Like, guys, I love mowing my yard. I'm weird, but and
Like those are real goals,
and it is, and
or
it's just like,
paramotor training that you're
yeah,
in right now.
I'm literally, yes, I'm in knee deep in paramotor training right now, and we're waiting for conditions and then to be good, and I'm gonna have my
It should be
first solo
fine.
flight with a motor on my back. So there's that.
Amazing.
But yeah, it's really, for me, what happened is I just really figured out like, what can I do maybe just over this next month to like really get to somewhere. So the first goal, like after like I squirrel brained it a lot and like was just stumbling a lot, and like the motivation would come and go, and like, and I think that's normal with any of your goals. Like suddenly you're just gonna, screw this, I give up on everything. But like there's still going to be some type of drive. You're going to have a day, maybe a week, where you're just like, screw everything, but there's still something in you that's like, let's freaking go. But for me, what happened is I stumbled around a lot, back and forth, putting the cart before the horse a lot. And then my first goal that I ever set, my first really big goal, my first 13-week goal, and that's what I teach, unless it's too overwhelming for my clients, everybody's completely different, was going to the gym consistently for three times a week for 90 days. And that was me just proving to myself that I could stick to something for 90 freaking days. I've never done that in my entire life. And I think this is why it can be so hard for people when it comes to goals, is because they try and overload themselves. Because what I see is like, oh, I'm going to go to the gym 3 times a week for 90 days. And they immediately like, they're going to go 3 days a week. You don't start out like that, because if you've never consistently stuck to anything in your life, your brain's going to be like, oh, what the fuck are we doing? Right? It's like,
yeah. And then you're setting yourself up for failure at that point, right?
Yeah,
like you don't start out by bench pressing 300 pounds. You start out with a little bit of weight.
I started out with going like
time.
1 day a week, getting into the groove of like, okay, what's it feel like to go just 1 day a week and stick to that for like 2 or 3 weeks. And then over time, I bumped it up. And by the end of those 90 days, I was blown away. I was just like, I mean, obviously you go to the gym and like your body and stuff changes too, but like it kind of flipped my mindset just a little too. And it showed me, wow, this is what consistency is like. And it wasn't easy. Like, I know anybody here that's ever tried to go to the gym, it's freaking hard. It's like I have to make myself get up and freaking go work out. Like, come on, what? I don't want to do this today.
Oh yeah. So I'd love to hear what you did to do that. I want to share a similar story of, so I've been going to Ashtanga yoga for the last 5 years, and it only happens early in the morning. I have to get my ass up and go I got to be out the door by 6:30 in the morning. But in order to do that, I have to breastfeed the baby. I have to get my toddler set up with an episode of Clifford and feed him his granola and yogurt. I have to wake my husband up and let him know that I'm leaving, get dressed, get my butt in the car, drive downtown and go. When I first started going to Ashtanga, I was pregnant. I was like in the first trimester. So there's a whole bunch of nausea. It was not fun. But what I did is I would set my clothes out in advance. I would wear my yoga clothes to bed. So I would wake up in the morning. I would get a dance party playlist rocking and rolling and blast it, right? I would get in my car. I'd have that playlist. I'd drink my water. I'd set the snack out ahead of time. So sure, you could say, okay, I'm just going to go. Or you can set yourself up for success and set the conditions for what you know is going to motivate you, light you up, and get your butt there.
Yeah, it was rough. And that's something that there's so much that I teach my clients with all of this. And I also teach them like habits and habit tracking. And when it comes to what you just went over, I call that like, how can we create less friction to you to do said thing? And that would be like, okay, what are you going to do in the morning? Because a lot of the time, a lot of my clients really struggle with getting into a routine of any sorts, which that happens, especially in the beginning. But it's also, I'm like, okay, cool. What can you do the night prior to create less friction? So that way, when you wake up, you grab your coffee, your tea, or whatever you want to do in the morning. So that way it's already set up and done. You don't walk into your office or your space where you're going to like ground in for the day and it's a mess and your journals are everywhere. Like, how can you set yourself up and create less friction for you to do the thing? So for me, going to the gym, it was like, I went with my man. So he was just like, no, let's freaking go. And then it was also like me just getting my clothes ready, like snacking before we went, and like getting all of that in order was a huge key. And then it was always 9 times out of 10, I would be like, I don't want to freaking do this today. I don't want to go. And then I'd get there and he'd be like, yeah, I'm really glad that I came. Like 9 times out of 10, there'd be some days where I just super wasn't feeling it. And that's normal because we're freaking human. But also it's just like, for me, like, I think a big part of goals is a lot of people always come to me and they tell me like, how do you keep the motivation high? And I'm just like, oh, this was a good one. this is like a big question I always get asked, is because we're humans, our motivation, it's going to come in like waves, it does, and it will. And the biggest one that I can always go into is, what is your emotional connection to the goal? Why do you want it? And I can always go in between. There's my two goals that I've got. One, I want to take my grandparents to the beach. And look, I'm getting all emotional about it because when I think about it, like, my grandparents have never seen the beach and I want to take them because my grandparents raised me. So they're my parents. And like, you see the emotion that's coming up right now, like it's deep and it can make me, it's like that feel good, mushy, ooey gooey. And then I can switch over to paramotor training and I get freaking pumped. I'm ready to go. Like, it's excitement, it's adventure, it's freedom. And I'm in training right now, but it's like, you've got these whole two different emotions coming up. And when you lose that motivation or that drive, or you just think about, screw these goals, I give up, this is too hard right now. Every time when I'm like, I want to give up, I immediately, this is why I also teach vision boards. Like, this is why when I have really shitty days or really hard moments, my vision board, when I see these very specific photos and I'm like, okay, I'm not going to give up because this is why I want these things. And this is why I'm doing what I'm freaking doing, because you're going to have really hard moments and it's going to suck. I'm not going to lie. But like, and that's a big thing, is I hear it all the time. Like, how do you keep the motivation? I'm like, I just have such an emotional connection to these goals that, when I think about them, these crazy, like, whether it's like I get really emotional and crying, get really teary eyed, you got it. It's like, it's always like, why do you want this? Why? Like,
Why does
dig
it
down
matter?
deep. And then it's like your business. Like, for me, I'm not gonna lie, there's still days I want to throw my freaking business in the dang trash can and be like, screw all this. But then when I really think about it, it's so fulfilling to like see my clients and other people just be like, yeah, like, this is what I really want. And then like they shift into this, yeah, Michelle, like, you've given me this permission to dream and like I can actually do this and you've been my permission slip. And like they just start making things happen and like their life starts changing and they get going. And that's, to me, it's so fulfilling to see that. Like, it's so nice. And I get people, they come to me like, yeah, I just want to be like you. Like, you do what you want. I'm like, heck yeah, like you can do it too, no matter what, like ADD brain or not, because it's like, I was so nervous to go into paramotor training because I'm like, I'm so ADD and like flying can be really risky. And if you're being ADD brain, like, what are you going to do? And it was so funny because on my first day of training, both of my instructors was like, it was straight squirrel brain the whole day that day, just because I was the only student there. And both of my instructors like, man, I think we're all ADD, right? And I was like, oh my God, I'm not the only ADD pilot. Like, and it was just so cool. So it's just like, you can do all these incredible things in life and business and have ADD, but you get to do it the way that you want to, like I had a client call the other day and she was just like, yeah, I just don't know about like starting my weeks on Mondays. I'm like, okay, so why don't you like start your weeks on Thursdays? She's like, oh, I just didn't think I could do that. I'm like, well, why not? Like, it's if your schedule starts on Thursdays, like if your Thursdays are everybody else's Mondays, if that works for you, you get to do it that way, right? So yeah,
That's
it's totally doable.
that's what I love about running our own businesses is like, ugh, I hate bosses. I made a post recently. I've always been told to like, oh, you just have to manage up. Like, no, I don't want to manage up and teach my boss how to do their job so that they can get paid 3 times as much as I am. Not about that life. And yet here we are. Okay, it's late stage capitalism. There's a global pandemic going on. There's a shit ton of oppression, systemic oppression and structure, and it's really frustrating. So you can try to rebel against the system, or you can rebel from within the system. And that's what I think building our own business and doing it our unique way really is. Of, okay, you can focus for 10 minutes. Great, we can work with that. Focus for 10 minutes. 10 minutes will let you write one post, and then maybe you post it in one place. And you go ahead and go let your brain get distracted intentionally by something else. And then you
Yeah,
come back to it, right? And say, okay,
yeah,
now I'm going to repurpose it in an Instagram post. Great, that'll take you another 10 minutes. Okay, so we can get caught up in making ourselves wrong for it, or we can accommodate our brains and our bodies and our nervous systems and say, all right, how do I get this to work for me? How do I
Yeah.
figure this out?
Yeah, and something else too is like in me of like I've pivoted my niche just a wee little bit with tech, because even that, like what I've noticed, a lot of people, whatever PC you have, you can set it in focus mode, focus assist, for where no other notifications are coming in. Because for
Cool.
me, anytime I pick up my phone, I'm scrolling. I end up, and it's like
Scrolling.
I mean to pick it up to like message someone back or like do something, and then I find myself in this doom scroll. I'm like, wait, what was I doing? And it's really, you can also let your tech do the work for you and like distract and
Yeah.
helping you cut out the distractions and like all this other stuff too. So it's like, yeah, you can use your tech to help you too, you know, like there's so
That's
many
the
things
biggest
you can
thing,
do.
is like, let the technology automate for you, right? So a
Yes.
big thing for our clients is, oh, I have a hard time being consistent. Great. Let it work for you. You can batch your content posts. You can take one post and repurpose it 10 different ways. And then you can schedule it. So everything you guys see from me on Instagram, I now schedule it for the month. And it goes out through a program called Later. It's $15 a month. And there's another one called Planoly. Hootsuite used to be free. You can actually use Facebook Publisher for free and push stuff out to Instagram and Facebook. You can also schedule things in your Facebook groups. You can schedule posts for, I think it's 2 to 3 months out.
Yeah, that's
So
what
you
I
can
do.
use the tech. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I would say you can scrolling. The scrolling thing and the notifications and getting distracted, it's there on purpose. There are hundreds, I want you to know this, hundreds of psychologists working for Facebook, working for Twitter, working for Instagram and TikTok to figure out how to keep you on the platform longer, how to keep you scrolling, how to keep you clicking on ads and staying on the Facebook page. So there's a program called Newsfeed Eradicator. You can Google for that. You can add it to Chrome. It'll block your newsfeed. And also, I give myself scrolling breaks. Like, all right, Emily, you got 10 minutes. Go scroll till your heart's content. Scroll, 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 scroll,
Yeah.
scroll, scroll. And then I sit down and say, okay, now you're going to focus for 10 minutes, right? But it's just like sitting down at school. How many of us like could not keep your butts in your seat at school, right? And great, run around, go run around, let your brain run around, and then get it to settle and focus on one thing for a hot second. So it's, don't work against it and say, oh, I've got to sit down for an hour. Emily says, no, screw that. Like, if it works for you to sit for 10 minutes, great. I voice to text most of my writing. I speak it into my phone. And apparently that's a thing for Androids. One more vote for Androids versus an Apple phone, although I am on a Mac. But you get to make it work for you. And Michelle and I probably have hundreds of different ways that we've personally done it and that we can teach and that we can think and work through it. And that is what we're going to help you do in the mastermind, because it's these unique solutions, unique to work for you and your life. I can't do that in a course. And we're giving you some samples today, but we would love to help you craft it, to craft a business that's going to work for you, for your family, for your other jobs, for the things you want to do. So for Michelle, it's really important for her that she is not on over the weekends. Like, she wants her weekends to be off, 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 off. And so that's her business structure. That's how we've built it. That's how she's built it.
Yeah, and I think too, something even with goals in general, and just like what I teach, is getting that momentum going and getting the consistency going to a point. Like I purposely cleared my schedule for the first 2 weeks of April to get through paramotor training, right? It's just like, and I was able to do that. And usually in once a month in business too, I usually have a whole week completely off. But it's like I've gotten to a point, because I've gotten so good with like the consistency and the momentum too. And that's like a big key part of it too. And I know a lot of people and like they're just like, how do I just get the consistency and the momentum? I'm like, let's get you into a routine and figure out your way of like breaking your stuff down and getting you into the groove of like making things happen. Because eventually you're just going to be able to throw out the planner like me. Sometimes I do. I throw it out and I'm like, yeah, I don't have to look at this. this because I have this momentum going so freaking good for me that I can like just be like, oh, 2 weeks for paramotor training cleared. We're good. Right. So
Right, because you've built it. And so I have a guide. I actually list step by step for where you are in your business. You get it immediately as part of the mastermind in the vault, but it's like, where are you at and what's your next right step? And I have a guide for that. But basically, step one, post consistently on social media. I don't care what you post. I don't care if it's pictures of your feet or of your babies or of your hikes with your cute little dog. Post consistently. And that might mean every day. It might mean 3 days a week. That's like step one. Okay. If you want a big takeaway today, get on the consistency train, because what you're doing is you're building your proof muscle to be able to lift heavier loads. So an awesome member in CEO Enchantress was like, how the hell are you guys running programs and building programs and taking care of your clients all at the same time? It didn't start that way. I didn't just wake up to a successful business. This is year 3 in my business. Is this year 2 or 3 for you?
this is going on 2 now. Yeah, we're going.
We're rocking. But when I first started, I didn't have clients, right? So I was building my one-on-one client base. And then I added the mastermind. And then I added a program course. And then I'm going to relaunch the podcast soon. And it's like brick by brick, piece by piece.
Yeah.
And because I have a plan and a system for everything else, then it becomes easier to add more, add other things.
I think even like a huge thing that I've seen, even for me, and I know you've heard me preach about this, but it's also like for me and what I teach my clients is like, how can we run our business, but also there's life. How can we do both and, you know? And I always say, like, how are you going to remember your doctor's appointments or change the stupid filter in your freaking furnace and like all of that too? Like for me, it's like a lot of like life this past week. It's been wild because it's been all day, every day paramotor training, you know? And then like I came back to my phone yesterday. I was like, whoa, like what's this world, you know? But it's also like there's a both and of like, how do you run all your business and also live your life and enjoy life? Because the whole point in you having a business is so you can enjoy your freaking life. Because for me, it would be 2 years this September that I have been wanting to do paramotor training, right? But it's also like I had to get my business rocking and rolling too. And that was like the consistency train there that got me to where I am today of like, okay, I've done this, but it's like, okay, how can I run my business? But also, how do I enjoy life? Because for me, I love playing video games. That's totally my jam. And it's like, how do you do both and? Because that's the whole point. Like, how can we create fulfilling days right here, right now, while we're working our way towards those really big, you know, goals and dreams and having a consistent monthly income as well.
I love that. The motivation thing is a big deal. And what happens when you have this big goal that you haven't broken down is then you're not hitting it. And then you're like, I'm a failure. I'm never going to do this. This sucks. I should just give up. But you still have that drive where you're like, I want to do this, but I'm just a failure. No, you just need to get support so that you can break down the goal so that you can get it to work for you. You get to have a business that works for you. You get to help people, you get to make money, you get to feel good and have the time to do what you want to do. But that might require support because you've never done it before. So if you want support, I got 3 spots left in the mastermind. You get one-on-one coaching with Michelle and one-on-one coaching with me in the group calls. There's 1 spot on Tuesdays at 9 a.m. 2 spots for Wednesday, 3 p.m. And that's it. We start Sunday.
I'm really excited.
Me too. It's going to be awesome. But I want you to know that you get to have a business that works for you. Like, end of sentence. It gets to work for you. It gets to work for your brain, for your wandering attention, for your intuition, for any body conditions you have. You still get to figure out a way to make it work for you. We didn't even touch on that, but I think would both, I know I can say I definitely have an autoimmune disorder and it's not fun, but it's something you can work with. And maybe we'll talk on that next week.
Yeah, I have things too. It's just like, there's days where I'm like, the only thing I'm going to do is lay in bed and cry because I'm in pain. So, and that happens, you know?
And then
You get to
it
figure it
building
out.
your business around it. Yeah. And being able to take time away. So Connor's grandma died last week, and we're doing she was 95, good long life, but we're doing so many things this weekend. I had to cancel a client call today, and it's like, yep, I need to clear my calendar for the next 3 days. And I can
Mhm.
do that because it's my business, and my clients want to do that in their businesses too.
Yeah, yeah. For me, like even with these past 2 weeks, like even my clients, they're like, "Yeah, you go fly. Like we can reschedule, and like you go do what you've been wanting to do." And it's so cool too, because and I think that was the hardest thing for me, like coming into my business, was thinking that it had to be like corporate America. It's all set in stone. You got to. I don't get
Gotta
to do
show
it. Like
up.
I'm stuck in this box, you know. And then it's just like you get going and you do it your way and you figure it out. And then you also figure out in business too, like your clients do support you. Like even for me, it's like it meant the world to me when my clients was like, "No, you go to training. We can completely reschedule." And I was like, "Yes,
That's
this is
awesome.
awesome."
I had the same thing happen when I took a month off for maternity leave. That was in June. I took the full month off. I still had 5K come in as reoccurring monthly revenue. And my clients were still supported, and each and every one of them in the mastermind and in one-on-one coaching, they were like, "Are you sure you want to come back already? Like, you go chill with your little baby. It's going to be fine." And it felt so good to be supported in that way. And I chose to have that style of business, and then prepared my clients and, did everything that felt good each step of the way. Yay. So join us in the mastermind. If you aren't already there, send me a DM, send Michelle a DM. 3 spots are still open. You get to have a business that works for you. And I'd rather you hop in and get support sooner than later, because 6 months from now, you're going to wish you had said yes this round. I know that because I've been there. I've done that. I've waited to invest.
Same.
Ugh,
Same. Yeah, I
right?
don't
And it's
think
like,
I
I'll
would be
just
where
hack
I'm
it.
at without the support. Like I mean, for me, even in the beginning of my goal setting, it was like stumble, stumble, stumble. I eventually figured it out, but if I had gotten support, there's so many times even with my own clients, they're just like, "Man, if I would have just had these freaking strategies before, I would have been boom." And I'm like, "This is why we're here. This is why you get
Yeah.
support."
Yeah. Because it's not so much fun to struggle, struggle, struggle.
No.
And I resisted that for years. I'm like, I can figure this out on my own. But I've been in business coaching for the last 2 years, and it's been awesome because I don't have to figure my own way through every time. I can say, what do I do? Give me ideas. Help me
Yeah.
through this. And it's
Yeah, I
great.
think, yeah, I'm to a point now where it's just like, you've had support for so long. It's like, how can you not now? Like you get to a point where like, I can't not have a coach now. Like, this is amazing.
Yeah.
And I've got the support behind me and these amazing people, that are in the mastermind with you. It's really, really awesome. You form beautiful relationships and it's awesome.
The sisterhood is so good. So yeah, I think that's everything. It's 11:11. Anything else to add?
I don't think so. This is an epic conversation.
It was good. We'll do more on this. And guys, feel free to ask questions after the fact, or if you're watching the replay as well, because we'll come in and respond too. So, yay. Thanks for joining. Thanks, Michelle.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Mhm.